It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight, Mr. Paul Kanarak, and he comes to us with a wealth of information about the college information process. Paul was the co-founder of Princeton Review, which was one of the most successful educational startups in the country. After spending 25 years there, he transitioned and is now the managing partner at CollegeWise, which is America's largest college admissions company, with over 30 full-time counselors who work with students from all over the world. Since their inception in 1999, CollegeWise has helped more than 6,000 students from 40 different nations gain access to admissions to different colleges all over the world. Paul has had hundreds of speaking engagements where he's helped students find ease through the college application process. He has been a close friend of Los Alamitos High School for many years, and we are truly thankful for his time, his knowledge, and as you will soon see, his sense of humor. So please help me welcome Mr. Paul Kanarak.
Yeah, I'm awesome. Let's just go with that. Hello there in the back. How's the sound? We're good? This presentation is very, very different from the one I had the pleasure of giving in the spring. Because the one in the spring is pretty broad, it's for multiple classes, and is designed to sort of talk you off the crazy. That's a little harder to do as sort of college applications are looming, so much so that apparently all you're doing between now and October 10th is this. And I think for parents, one of the things to understand is that the whole college admissions process has sort of left-shifted. You know, the Common App opened in August of this year. Most of the colleges that students are really interested in sort of have early applications now. So when you were going through the process and possibly began to engage in November, December, more and more and more you're seeing this happen in August, September, October. Here's how tonight will work. I am going to throw a lot of information at you because there's a lot to cover. You don't have to write really any of it down, because when this thing is over and you email me and say, send me all that wretched stuff, I will be happy to do so. Every now and again I will pause and invite someone to sort of ask a question, and when round one of this thing is over, all of those who wish to abandon ship and race to the parking lot may do so. And I'll hang around and answer any specific questions from the people who are left. You know, and the Q&A piece gets pretty specific, much more so than I will get here. So that's sort of what we're going to do. That's my email address. It's paulk@collegewise.com. Like I said, anytime over the next 2 or 3 days, if you want what is up here, I'm happy to send it to you. And what you will see as I go through this is there will be a lot of links to useful information designed to give you very, very specific ideas about what to do next. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, this is what you do on page 2 of the Common App. It's awful to teach and worse to hear. That's not the intent here. The intent here is to sort of, as seniors, give you an overview and have you view things in a way that maybe you haven't thought about or heard. All right, that's updated. This is what's happening within the UC system. Now, I believe that Dr. Stone said there will be a UC rep coming in the next couple of days. This is what you're dealing with. So the University of California really has sort of 2 ways that admissions work. The first is, are you eligible to get in here? And there's a whole bunch of rules around grades and test scores and A through G requirements. And the second rule is, do we want to have you at our school? And something that is very, very confusing for parents is because it's called the UC system, you perceive there is a pecking order. So if Berkeley says yes, and they're sort of number 1, then clearly Irvine is going to send the limousine for my perfect child. Or if UCLA descends from Mount Westwood and says yes, well, Santa Barbara, that's a gimme. It's not how the game is played. They're part of the same system in that your state taxes fund it. They're part of the same system in that they all share an application, but they admit very, very different kinds of kids using different kinds of processes. And one of the things I will teach you today is examples of how these processes are different. Look how many people applied to UCLA. 102,000. Basically the entirety of Irvine applied. The number there is crazy. It goes up every year by 2,000 to 3,000 people. So this is sort of like this year when you apply, about 105,000 people will apply to Los Angeles. They will accept about 16,000 people. Does that make sense? Berkeley, you see the numbers, 85,000 apply because not as many people want to live in Northern California, and they'll take about 15,000 people. Those are the numbers. And if you are UC eligible, as in a UC school must take you, that is the job of Merced. Just so you know, Merced, those are the people who sort of road trip to Fresno to have a good time. Visalia, woo! So those are that's the UC stuff. And here, far more than most places, the grades that you have truly, truly matter. As you can see, if you have less than a 4.0, Berkeley's almost certainly going to say no. UCLA is almost certainly going to say no, unless you're an athlete. And if you've been watching any of the first 3 weeks of my beloved alma mater, UCLA, it would be really nice if they'd recruit someone on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe combine with some of those 3% people. But as you can see, even sort of when you move into like Davis, Davis in the eyes of us as consumers isn't perceived as a dramatically competitive college. But if your GPA is under a 3.7, the odds of getting into Davis are pretty damn low. Now remember, the UC schools kind of cheat on your behalf. You get an extra point seemingly for everything. You breathed spectacularly, that's APPE. Your freshman grades don't count. This is really sort of a pastiche of your sophomore, junior grades and your first semester senior grades if they need them. So that's that. Questions so far? No. Are these numbers on a weighted scale? Yes. So, you know, it's kind of fun. Only in California, on a 0 to 4 scale, do we go above it, because we're simply better. Right? What's your GPA? In California, we go, it's 4.8. All of the East Coast is entirely confused. Now, one important, non-facetious thing for you to understand, and parents and students get this wrong all of the time. The way the UC system computes your GPA, they only give you the extra point for 8 semesters worth of classes. I'm going to say that again. Only for 8 semesters worth. The equivalent really of 4 APs or 4 honors programs in high school. You get the extra point in your GPA. And at LaSalle, many students go way beyond that. So you think your GPA is like a 4.65. But when you get to the UC level, it's more like a 4.3. Does that make sense? So the way the system is set up, only 8 semesters count. And to anticipate the question, the 8 semesters that they count will be the ones that are best for your GPA. Other questions? Can't see much because the lights are on. Yeah?
So do they completely ignore you? If you go 4.6 versus 4.3, you'll know better off than they don't.
So the gentleman's question, so if I took 4,000 APs and have a 4.6, and she took 6 APs and have a 4.3, has my kid somehow been like messed over? So what I'm not getting into, sir, is one of the things that Berkeley, LA, and San Diego look at, because remember I told you that the schools do things differently, is they count the number of AP and honors semesters a kid has done as part of their internal formula. So for the child, once you sort of go north of 4.0, you're in play. It's just the under 4.0 cut point that makes a difference. Does that answer your question?
So those 3 schools do?
Those 3, almost all UC schools, sir, pay attention to the number of honors and AP credits that you have accumulated. For them, that is part of strength of schedule. All right, next. This is new, and I learned it this last week at NACAC. NACAC is the national conference in Boston for all college admissions counselors. Do you remember how I said the UC schools all do admissions slightly differently? This is brand new, and I did not know it until about 2 days ago. So at Berkeley, almost the entirety of their admissions process is holistic. Here's what that means. If your GPA is over a 4.0 and tens of thousands of their applicants are over 4.0, and if your SAT scores are over a certain number, and it'll be 1250, 1300, and tens of thousands of their applicants will be at that number, then what they look at is the same kind of thing as a private school will look at. What kind of person are you? Do you fit our culture? What have you done with your time? What do your essays say about you? Where are you from? What's your economic background? Do you have something we want? It's as much about you, the person, as it is about the numbers. Now, you don't have to like it, but does the explanation make sense? Combined with that, within the College of Letters and Sciences, and this was really interesting to me, they evaluate each applicant by major. Most UC schools don't do this. So if you're like a bio major, you're competing with all of the other bio majors. If you're a chemistry major, you're competing with all of the chemistry majors. So if you don't really mind what you want to study the first year or two, you want to apply into the College of Letters and Sciences as a humanities major. Because that group has, in general, the lowest set of numbers. The numbers aren't low. They're just the lowest. Are you with me on this? So that's sort of like what Berkeley does. Now you jump down to Irvine, where they're like, your major doesn't matter to us. If you're good enough to be admitted to the school, we will admit you. And if, by the way, you wanted engineering, and we didn't have room in engineering, we'll take you anyway and say, why don't you come to us and be undecided? Do you see how different that is? And UCI is numbers driven. If you've done stuff that's nice, let's talk about test scores. Now, it's not completely that way, as the UCI rep will speak to tomorrow, but in comparison to Berkeley, Irvine looks more to the academic side. Berkeley is looking more to the human side. So do you see, two schools, same system, very, very different rules. Then we jump to the next one. UCLA. In letters and sciences, you compete with everybody in the pool. In those other schools, you compete by major. So if you want to be a musician, you're competing with all the other musicians. You want to be in film, you're competing with all the other people in film. You want to be an engineer because you like being pale, you compete with all of the other engineers. That's sort of how that works. And this third part blew me away. The admissions committee at UCLA does not make the admissions decisions. The readers do. Readers are volunteers, usually drawn from the counseling community, who get a file of like 200 records and review that file and admit from that file. And all the admissions committee does is spot check who got in and who did not. That is a violently different way of doing admissions from Berkeley. Now that I know this, it begins to make sense to me why over the years, the kids who've gotten into LA and Berkeley have been such astonishingly different creatures. And UCLA tends to focus more on the academics. Because the readers who have limited knowledge tend to be drawn to the numbers more than the other stuff. And finally, San Diego, where your major doesn't usually matter, where you have to apply to one of the 6 colleges, but the order you pick them in doesn't matter. But if you have ELC, eligibility in local context, your odds of getting into San Diego are almost certain, and that's not true of the other 3. That's 4 of the UC schools. Santa Barbara, 50% of the people they take in purely on numbers. 50% of the people they take in because they like them. Right? That's 5 different ways of doing admissions. I'm not telling you this to irritate you, although that is my natural gift. I'm telling you this so that you understand the system works a little differently than the way you think. All right. I am sure there are going to be questions. In the back, anything? Yeah, go. ELC is eligibility through local context. It means at the top, usually 4 or 5% of the students in any school are automatic admits to the UCs. You get an ELC number, and if you have one, San Diego will almost certainly tell you. And that will come to you either online or through the counselors. Over here. Middle. Yeah. Madame. You get it's all automatically generated through the system. Gail, how does ELC work for LaSalle?
We get a letter sent home over the summer for those that have qualified.
So Gail's answer is, you know, the Los Alamitos shares data with the UC data portal. If you are ELC, apparently a letter will have come home to the house already saying you are an ELC person. Now let's be clear. Let's pretend there's 400 seniors. 16 or 20 of them will get ELC numbers. It's only the top 4% that get an ELC number. And ELC was introduced because, you know, LaSalle is not underrepresented in the UC system. A lot of our kids go there. But like places like Visalia or Chino or places like that, they are underrepresented. So it was their way of getting into Central California and deep Northern California and getting more of those kids to be eligible. You had a question. Gentleman's question, am I going to get to the Cal State system? Yes. Over here, go.
Over the summer, the schools were asked to send a list of the top 15% of seniors to send to all the UC from Los Angeles. Is that list out?
The lady's question, over the summer, the school was asked to send a list of the top 15% of the kids from LaSalle. How does that matter? It is from that list that the ELC is drawn. Okay, and so usually, let's pretend that was 50 names. Then they'll do their internal formula, and they don't know how it works. And they'll come out with the 16 or 20 who get the numbers. You got a letter home over the summer. In the back. Yes? How does UC Santa Cruz admit applicants? Are you strange? UC Santa Cruz uses a combination of, similar to Santa Barbara, a certain number come in through grades, a certain number come in through sort of your personality. You know, UC Santa Cruz is one of the 3 UC schools that tries to accommodate people who are UC eligible. That is Merced, Santa Cruz, and Riverside. Those are the 3 that consistently try to take in kids who are eligible. All right. Final point, and you may have seen this before. There is the impact of the budget crunch on UC schools. I went to UCLA. I think it is a remarkable institution. But you, as intelligent and informed consumers, need to understand, for example, if you send a kid to Irvine, it is 51% that she will graduate in 4 years. That's not the kid's fault. It's because once you put budgetary constraints in place, the number of sections that are available that allow kids to finish the prereqs and get through the system simply aren't sufficient. The other thing is kids change majors a lot in college. You did. And once a major changes, it gets a little bit tricky to get exactly the classes you want if there aren't enough sections available. So, I mean, a couple of those numbers, LA and Berkeley, are respectable. That's kind of like how private schools look. But this is something that a lot of people don't know, is that UC schools don't have fantastic four-year graduation rates. But wait, there's more. Those are the four-year graduation rates for the larger CSUs. If you send someone to Long Beach, their odds of graduating in 4 years are 1 in 10. Why? It is not because Long Beach is a bad school. It is not because San Jose is a bad school. It is for two reasons. They have even more budgetary constraints than do the UC system because they take so many more kids, so the money doesn't go as far. And the students who attend Cal State schools often aren't as wealthy. So they work more, so they take fewer units, and it is harder for them to go through the system. Having said that, that's terrible. Like, if you're going to go to a Cal State school, you better be dialed in, you better know what your major is, you better stay on track, otherwise you will not graduate in 4 years. And again, not designed to annoy, designed to inform. The entire Cal State system is numbers driven. They look at your grades, they look at your test scores. There is no essay, there are no extracurricular activities. If a campus or a major is impacted, it is simply harder to get in. And as you can see, or I didn't put it up there, generally speaking, for example, the admit rate at Long Beach is about 35%, but it's much higher for us because we're within the 50-mile limit. So Cal States adopt sort of their local territories. Long Beach and occasionally Fullerton, they are designed to serve our communities. So our kids have excellent placement records there, right? You want to get into San Diego and you're from here. It's so hard because San Diego is there to serve the San Diego community. Same with San Jose. So if you're out of the 50-mile radius, it just gets mathematically harder. But in terms of the process to get in, you fill out the form, they look at the grades, they look at the test score, they look at the major, they go yes, no. It's pretty binary. Next. Oh, the purpose, to repeat. I want you to be informed consumers as you launch through this series of exercises. I want you to go in with your eyes open. This is what's wonderful about UCs and CSUs. This is what's challenging. Next. Look at this. You look at Loyola Marymount or Santa Clara. Their 4-year graduation rate at Santa Clara is close to 80%. So do you realize Santa Clara probably costs about $50,000 a year, a terrifying number. But UC Santa Cruz costs about $30,000 a year. If you can get a scholarship at Santa Clara for about $10,000 a year, and their average, so you know, is 17. If you get a scholarship at Santa Clara for about $10,000 a year, it will probably cost you the same amount as it costs to go to Santa Cruz, because you'll graduate there in 4 years and more than 4 in Santa Cruz, and you'll get back a year of your life. This is why we say, don't let sticker price dictate college list. Sticker price dictates where you choose to go to school after you know who has said yes and after you know how much money they're giving you. But you want to be balanced because these graduation rates are pretty amazing and much better than their public school counterparts. This is why Gail and Dr. Stone and Nina and the others all sort of preach, go ahead and have a balanced list. Questions, comments, go. Yeah. That is the percentage of people who started in the cohort and 4 years later graduated. So let's say up there, These are the kids who entered in 2011. And that tells me what percentage of those kids graduated from that school 4 years later. That answer your question? Yeah, back there.
Yeah, is the admission process at private school usually more realistic than UC schools?
Great question. The admissions process at private schools, is it usually more holistic than it is at public schools? Absolutely yes. Here is a trick. Look at the percentage of people that a school admits. Look, you can see it on any website. What percentage of the candidates does the school accept? If it's over 60%, if you go to this school, almost certainly they're going to take you. You are prepared. They know this place. They know how rigorous it is. If it's between 40 and 60%, that is somewhat competitive. You're going to have decent grades, decent test scores, and a decent story. Under 40% is competitive, and under 20% is crazy, and they're likely to say no. But just looking at that one thing will give you a sense as to sort of what they're likely to do. Anyone else over here? We move on. Back to, oh, yes. The question. I get my bachelor's degree. It takes me 4 or 5 years, and because I wish to avoid the real world, you may not have said that, I go on and get a master's. How long does that take? It could take anywhere from 1 year to 2 years. So for example, most master's programs run 9 to 12 months. Some of them can run longer. Okay? All right. Who is successful at these big state schools? I don't need to read the slide at you. The one thing here I think is important is nature of instruction and being extroverted. The people who teach at UC schools are almost always a combination of research professors who are forced to teach. They'd rather be in the lab than in front of you, and they will make that clear. And teaching assistants who are graduate students with limited teaching experience who are sort of paying off tuition by teaching you. UC schools are not about great teaching. This is particularly and usually true in STEM. It is less so in the humanities. Cal State, the teaching is better than it is at the UC system. They're not as powerfully research-oriented. But again, the class sizes in Cal State are really, really, really big. The best teaching you will consistently find in California public schools, you will find at the community college level. Because they hire based exclusively upon that ability. Can you dominate a room? That's sort of what they look for. And obviously private schools have good teaching as well, but that's more expensive. Extroversion. You have to go out and get what you want. If you're quiet, you're introverted, you hide, you're sort of not comfortable advocating for yourself. You don't do as well here. Because this is a place that rewards the people who go and grab what they want. It's actually amazing. These UC professors, they have office hours every week. More often than not, no one comes. So imagine, you could have a private hour-long tutorial with this PhD in mathematics who has a relationship with math that's borderline romantic and weird. And she can teach you privately for an hour. And as that relationship evolves, extraordinary things happen not only around your mathematical abilities, but the bond you make that will help you in letters of rec and internships and things of that nature. And no one seemingly goes for it. They sit alone playing Clash of Clans all day long because no one bothers to show up. That's what extroversion does for you. And clearly, it helps if you don't have to work while you're there. This is one of those eye bleed screens. These are the links that you go to find all of the various applications, the UC and the Cal State and the Common App. And as I said, when you email me, this will be one of the things that you get. Note, the University of California, that has been open for like a month. In the old days, when parents applied, you couldn't look at that application before November 1st. And then sort of the screaming began. He had to apply and get in by November 30th through the US mail. Truly terrifying. All right, now we're to the applications. Now, what I'm doing, I'm trying to dive in and out of material so you sort of understand big picture, but can also do things that are very specific to your applications. Within the applications, these are the 4 things that we're going to talk about. The 4th one is obvious. Do exactly what they tell you to do. Do not be creative or imaginative outside of what they tell you to do. If they ask for 2 letters of recommendation and you go, 4 is better, they will hate you. Look, I sat in the room. Truly hate you. Not a good relationship to have, because this is a human process, not a mathematical one. You don't want your admissions officer to remember you as the creature that she loathes. All right, here we go. I can do this. I can, Activities. List them in the order of their importance to you. Not how long you did them, not how sexy they appear. List them in the order. The rule up there, what is my one activity that if I was not permitted to do this, I would truly be miserable? That one goes first. Now, a mistake that a lot of people make here is they go for volume. I have done 27 different things. In admissions, that tells us 2 things. 1, you can't do math because we're pretty sure you didn't sleep. And 2, nothing matters to you if everything matters to you. We don't want bumblebees. We don't want butterflies. We don't want dilettantes. We want people who love and get into 2, 3, or 4 things. Is this making sense? Volume, quantity, no. Quality and passion, yes. Next point. So many people in the space provided for activities write down, I was the chairperson of the French club for the left-handed from June of 2014 till June of 2016. No! No! Boring to write, worse to read. I cannot imagine being left-handed without having the French on my side. Did you know Napoleon was left-handed? No one knows Napoleon was left-handed. By the way, he was of average height. Everyone thinks he was short. You learn this in French club for the left-handed. Now they go, who is this maniac? Every time you have a chance to show your personality, show it. This is consistently a wasted opportunity. If they say you've got 140 characters to write 140 characters about how awesome you are in this club and what it means to you. Are you with me? That's a huge opportunity that people will miss. And that's sort of explained. What they meant to you is great. What you did and when is boring and doesn't tell me anything. Questions? We move on. LOR stands for letter of recs. Now think about this. Everything that is written on this screen is stuff I already know about you. Everything. So any letter of recommendation that touches upon the things I already know about you is wasted. I think you know this. I get to speak about university admissions all over the world. Next week I go to Singapore to talk to Singaporeans about American university admissions. There is one story I always tell, always, and it comes from this school, and it's probably 20 years old now. And I think I told you this in the spring, but it bears repeating in case you weren't here. One of the greatest letters of recommendation I ever heard of was written here. And a kid was applying to Harvard, and he went to the head custodian, and he said, "Will you write my letter of recommendation to Harvard?" Which is an odd choice. And the guy wrote one line. He says, "I've been cleaning classrooms at Los Alamitos High School for 22 years, and Jimmy is the only student to ever ask me the names of my children." And that's all he wrote. That is a perfect letter of recommendation. You have learned every single thing you need to know about Jimmy in one line. I did not just say, if you want to go to Harvard, have the custodian write your letter of recommendation. That is not the purpose of that particular story. The purpose of the story is the person, the man or the woman who writes this letter must be able to write about you from the human perspective and to show your passion for learning and being sort of an active part of her class or his life. That's your job. When you go to your teacher and say, "Can you write me a letter of recommendation?" You heard me say this earlier. That's the wrong question. The right question is to go to a teacher and say, "Can you write me a great letter of recommendation?" Because then you get the honest answer. "I haven't seen you in 9 months. I don't remember my dog's name from this morning. Help me." So what you want to do is you want to give a teacher, "Here's the things that you taught me. Here are moments that we had in and out of the classroom. These are the small things that I particularly enjoy," and you want to weave that into the letter. And if you're smart, you also share with them your essay so they can match the letter of recommendation to support the things that you're saying about yourself. So that's what a letter is for. And that's what I ask. Those are the ways that you sort of figure out who can write your letter. Now, there will be people here who go, "I didn't have that experience in any class." And that's harder for you, because that person cannot write a great letter. You know, counselors for many private schools have to write letters. You don't want them to write the letter, "Jane is fine. She apparently doesn't bite or hit the other children," because that's all they know about you. So yeah, all of this is relationship building, or helping the counselor or the teacher write the letter that you want by sharing with her or him episodes and pieces of the time you spent together. This is an art form as much as it is a science. The University of California generally does not ask for letters. Cal State schools generally do not ask for letters. Traditionally, the letters are asked from the more competitive private schools. Okay? Questions? Yes?
Would it be okay to have a teacher outside of school, like an art teacher, write you a letter of rec, or is that like unprofessional?
The latest question, what if my teacher is outside of school, like an art teacher? That speaks to number 4, follow directions. If they say, "We would like a letter from a teacher," and that teacher can be from in school or out of school, you're good. If they say, "We must have a letter from a teacher in school and a second letter from someone else who knows you," you're good. If they say, "We need one letter from someone in school," don't send them a letter from someone out of school. Do you know why? Because they will hate you. And if you're ever unsure, email the local rep and say, "This is it." Now, normally, for example, if you're applying into an art program or a music program or something in the arts, they will insist upon a letter from the person who coached you privately. Okay? What else? Yes?
You said that generally Cal States go after essays. Does that mean like they always go, or
The gentleman's question. Is there any instance upon which a Cal State might ask for an essay? Yes, but it's usually for a scholarship, it's not for admissions. Okay? Gail, do you know of anything else on that one?
Saying the honors program will sometimes ask for a letter.
Thank you. So let's say, for example, you're applying to an honors program in a school that doesn't traditionally ask for a letter. They might have a letter or an essay. But if it's just regular applications, they don't ask for one. One quick thing about Cal State. One Cal State school, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, requires you to declare your major. And they do the admissions based upon the major you declare. So if you have to go to San Luis Obispo, Mom went there, Dad went there, the cat went there. Apply under animal husbandry or agriculture. Because if you have like a 2-2 and you showed up on the SAT, they will admit you. But if they admit you into that program, it's cows and sheep. You can't get out. You can't transfer to Faulkner's English. You're in there in the muck and the mire. But that's sort of how it works. On the letter of recommendation piece, those are some things to not worry about. You love math. Math loves you back. Math teachers aren't great essay writers because they like math, right? But they can speak to your passion for the subject in a way that can sing to a reader who goes, my God, this is a math teacher who used 3 adjectives to describe the student. I haven't seen that since 2012. So yeah, these are the rules. Pick teachers who like you. Duh. Can you imagine a dating philosophy? She hates me, I'm asking her. That ends badly. It's hard to pick a teacher. It's hard to pick a teacher from the 9th grade. It's too long ago. Remember what I was saying. If you're asking a teacher from last year, they barely remember you. 9th grade is from pterodactyls roaming the globe. The exception to that, she's no longer your teacher, but she's been your faculty advisor for yearbook for the last 2 years. She still knows you. Does that make sense? All right. The last one matters. Why? It's really hard to write 50 great letters. If you're the one who everyone asks, they tend to get in a rhythm and a flow of sort of a standard letter. Now, my only exception to the last one, this is your favorite teacher. You are her favorite student. You can speak chapter and verse to the relationship. You always want to pick the teacher who knows and respects and likes you the most. And this is how you ask. You don't assault them in nutrition. Mr. Jameson! Tackle! Do that. Teachers like thank yous and Starbucks cards. They like them. It's always nice to say thank you. That's how you do the ask. Any questions about letters of recommendation? Excellent, I can move on. Normally when I come here, I'm not under the Klieg lights. I've lost 4 pounds already. This is going quite well. You're going to do, excuse me. You're going to do an entire day on writing good essays. None of those qualify. I don't want to hear about your extraordinary trip to insert country's name here, where you ate something weird, and therefore you're ready to live in Minnesota. Not only is it a terrible essay with bad logic sequencing, it is so overused. I don't want to read about how your costly error in activity X cost your team, person, group something, and you rose above it. Why? Because I know the end of your essay as I read its beginning. I will repeat the most important rules for you. 1, own your voice. The single most important thing in an essay is, do I hear you? And 2, assume that your essay will be read at 11 o'clock at night by someone who is cranky, tired, hungry, who hears the cat in the corner vomiting. And you've got next. That's the person you have to engage. One of my favorite stories about essay writing was given to me by the Dean of Admissions from NYU's film school. His name was Ed Custom. And you have to understand, people will donate limbs to get into the film school. I mean, it's just absurdly hard to get into. And he was telling this story about a kid who was writing his essay about obscure cinematographic techniques of mid-50s Italian cinematographers. And it's awful. And it's 5 pages long. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And the kid's throwing in Italian and weird stuff. And Ed can feel his blood pressure rising because, as I mentioned earlier, he now hates this child. He goes to page 5 and the kid has stopped writing. And he's written in crayon. I don't know who you are or what you want from me. All I know is I've got to get the hell out of Maine. And Ed starts laughing. So he calls the kid in Maine. And he goes, "Hi, this is Ed Custard from NYU Film School. I'm the Dean of Admissions." And the kid, of course, doesn't believe it. Right? He's like, yeah, pull the other one. And hangs up on him. So Ed has to call back, "No, really, I am the Dean of Admissions from NYU. I just read your essay, and I was hating it. What were you doing?" He's like, the kid went, "It's perfect. I wanted to make you so mad that you would laugh at the end." And Ed goes, "It worked! Come here, I want to meet you." So the kid drove from Maine to New York, met Ed, and Ed took him. Because it's a human process. There's a human on the other end reading your work. That human will probably be somewhere between 23 and 25 years old. Almost certainly will be a woman who attended the school you are applying to. That is your audience. All right, with that in mind, the challenge that wasn't. Mercifully, we live pretty privileged lives here in Orange County. I don't want to hear, there's a famous essay, it's called the VW essay, written in Orange County, and in brief, it said, the kid's trouble was that she had known all along that she was getting a new BMW for her 16th birthday, but her dad only gave her a new VW, and she was so embarrassed because she had to show this terrible German car to her friends. Now, that could have been a great essay if it had been tongue-in-cheek, but it wasn't. It was serious pain and angst. Guess what? They hated her. Yeah, don't try and create challenges where they do not exist. Write essays that are true to your voice. And there it is. Never, ever, 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 ever let your parents read your essay. It's a terrible idea. They're awful editors. They're awful because they love you. All right, they're going, "Darling, this is great." It isn't. It's absolutely awful. Or Dad inserts his voice, and there is nothing on God's green earth as constipated as a 48-year-old man's writing. That's not your voice. You show your essays to people who do not love you, like my colleagues in the front row. And say, you don't love them, you just like them occasionally, right? And you go, is this me? Or am I trying desperately to be someone who I am not? Or, see, with emphasis. Always own your own voice. And for parents, the great thing about Seinfeld was the topics, the shows, they weren't about anything. There was no plot. 22 minutes on lunch. The best college essays have no plot. They're just about you telling stories about your life, engaging and being interested and occasionally amusing. I just want to learn who you are so I can like you more. The more you open up, the easier it is. 2 pieces of advice here. 1, and I'm going to be somewhat gender biased here. This is not exact, this is more observational. Women in general don't boast enough about their accomplishments in their essay writing. Men don't seem to have that problem. Men, in general, do not emote enough in their essay writing. It's almost like they're writing an English paper. So for women, when you're writing, show it to someone and say, are my accomplishments, is my voice singing here? And for men, write your first draft of your college essay after 11 o'clock at night when you're tired and the walls are down. It will be a better first draft. A first draft is precisely that. It isn't about grammar, it isn't about flow, it isn't about perfection. It's an accumulation of ideas so that your editor, the person reviewing your work, can say more of this, more of this, more of this, and make this go away. Those are really good first drafts. And that's the essay, which you'll learn a lot more about in the next couple of days. The UC system has moved to 3 essays. They're short answer. Those are the rules. Before you write, decide what you're going to say. Ideally, brainstorm it with a friend or a counselor or a teacher, but not your parents. Go through the various ideas that you could write about and make sure they're all part of the larger theme. I am interesting and I like hamsters. Tell me more about the hamster thing. This is odd. I am the queen of Jeopardy in my household. No one can top me. I love this. I do this better than anybody else. Constantly speaking to the same theme. You're telling a story here. Don't deviate. Common App, 700 schools are on this. It is the dominant tool used. As you can see, about 1/3 of the people on Common App are first generation to college. You can see about 1 million people, uniques, apply. That goes up around 50 to 60,000 every year. The average number of schools applied to is 5. It won't be here. The average here is between 8 and 10. That's just one of the things that you have happen in a wealthier, more academically aggressive school. I wouldn't go much beyond 8, gang. Because, if you apply to 8 schools, 4 or 5 of them are likely to take you. You want to put your energy and your effort into sort of those 8 applications. Everything else you can sort of read for yourself. That is probably the most important thing I can give you. This is a bunch of former admissions officers who work for me who put together a guide for you that is free about how to best fill out a Common App to engage the person reading it on the other side. This is the insider's viewpoint on how to be perfect with the Common App. You want that. Financial aid. You have an entire night devoted to it. Bottom line, they've changed the rules. They have changed the rules so that when you are applying for financial aid, you no longer have to wait for your 2017 tax information. You get to use your 2016 tax information. In addition, FAFSA opens for business, I think, October 15th. Early bird gets the worm, gang. More money goes to people who apply earliest. You don't want to wait till the old deadline of January or February. There is a reason why Dr. Stone and his compadres have moved the financial aid night earlier to October the 4th. Traditionally, it was in December. It is because PPY is so consumer friendly, they want you to take advantage of it. You will know before you apply how much money each school is likely to give you. Remember the old rules. You would apply. You would ask for financial aid. They would say yes or no. You're emotionally committed. You'll pay anything. Bad for you, good for the schools. The new rules. You can know how much money you're likely to get before you apply and manage your list accordingly. Really good for you as consumers. That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff. Now, a couple of things. One, when I'm done, anyone who is like exhausted, flee. And I'll hang around to answer any questions. Two, traditionally, and this is important, about 90% of LaSalle students go to one of their top 3 choices for college. Did you hear that? About 90% of you will go to one of your top 3 choices for college. I don't know which one, but this has been a consistent mark of excellence here. So I don't want you guys to go entirely mental about, is anyone going to take me? Lots of schools are going to take you, and 9 times in 10, one of your 3 top choices is going to say yes. That is really the most powerful piece of good news that sits as you begin this rigmarole. And with that, those of you who wish to go, please do so. Those of you who wish to stay, I will resume in about 2 minutes after I've had water. Gail, anything you want to add before they go? All right, those who want to go, buzz off. I'll be right back. There are 2 ways that you get money for college. One way is purely formulaic. It's you fill out the FAFSA, you fill out the profile, they look at the amount of money you have, they look at the amount of money they charge, and they give you aid to help you pay. That is called need-based. Need-based aid even applies in sort of middle income, upper middle income households because college is super expensive. That's about half the money. The other half of the money is merit aid. And merit aid goes to kids who they want at their school. Bless you. So if you have something a school wants, and schools generally want 4 things: diversity, that can be economic, that can be ethnic, that can be geographic. Example, California kids don't go to Louisiana. California kids don't know Louisiana's in America. So when a California kid says, I want to go to Georgia, there's more money there, because we don't go there. When a California kid wants to go to Arizona, they're sick of us. There's lots of us there. So geography matters. Ethnicity can play a role. Economic diversity can play a role. You're not from a wealthy family, so we want you. If you have a special talent that they ask for, lacrosse, a sport, a singing voice, an artist ability. But the number one thing to get merit money is test scores. That's where the merit money mainly goes. Higher test scores, colleges pay for. So if you want to chase merit money, apply to a private school where your scores are about 100 points higher than their listed average. There will be a ton of money that comes your way. You don't have to like that answer, but it's consistently true. That's how you get maximum money from college. The other ways to make colleges cheaper, there's a wonderful website called Quotely, Quotly, Quotly. TTLY. That will show you the absolute cheapest path for you to earn a college degree. It'll ask you a bunch of questions, and when you're done answering them, you will have a sense of how to get a 4-year college degree in the thing that interests you, spending the least amount of money. Those are the kinds of things that you can do around economics. Does that help? What else do you want to know?
I think that covers it.
Okay, next. There are a lot of athletes at this school. How does athleticism play a role? Remember what I said just now? Colleges pay for things that they want. If you're an athlete and they want you, they will pay you in one of two ways. Either by giving you a scholarship or by making it easier for you to get into their school if they don't choose to give you a scholarship. So in general, sports, if you're good and are being recruited, almost always means a greater chance of getting into the school, particularly if you're willing to apply early, because then they know they've got you. Sports, more broadly, are the combination of heart, mind, and body working together, and that is something almost any college likes, is the intersection of being intelligent and being athletic. Those students are students who tend to do better in school, and they know that. So sports in general indicates something that colleges like. Sports, when you have a talent, all the rules are different. The lady who asked me that question, do you have a follow-up?
So do they get accepted sooner? Like when should we apply? Because she verbally committed to the UC college.
Got it. The lady's question. My daughter's being recruited. She's being recruited by a UC school. When should she apply? November 1st. The very first day she's allowed to. Yeah, send the message loudly and clearly. Now, let's say it's a private school. You ask the coach, get you in a second. You ask the coach, when would you like me to apply to lock me down? And the coach will say, I want you to apply on this day. You do exactly what the coach asks you to do if it is your top choice school. If it is not your top choice school, you do what you want to do. You maintain control. But the things like the lady was telling me, when you are recruited, the rules are different, and the coach will go to the admissions committee on your behalf, tag your application and say, I want this kid. All the rules are different for her or him. Go.
Regarding FAFSA money,
Yeah.
is that something that is applied for yearly, or is there an allotted amount that is given to that particular child that can be used?
The lady's question is more mechanical. FAFSA, is this an annual event or not? It is always an annual event. Annual. Now, most private schools, madame, will use a combination of FAFSA and profile. Most will. There's a second form. Most public schools only use FAFSA. I will not dive too deeply into that. That's what October 4th is about. But, if you want to get merit aid, if you want a school to give you merit money, fill out FAFSA. They don't give merit money usually unless you filled it out, because they figure you don't need it. If you want merit money, you always check the box that says, do you want financial assistance? You always say yes. Because it's not as though they go, oh, he asked for help, we're not taking him anymore. They don't do that. So yeah, if you're going to chase merit money, you're going to chase need money, fill out FAFSA, check the box. Always. That's a no-brainer. Next question. Go.
What's the significance of early decision when applying to private school?
Oh, I hate you. Like a lot. The gentleman's question. Early decision programs, which I was trying really hard to duck. All right, let me do this properly. Early decision. You apply to a school early decision, usually by November 1st. They let you know before Christmas whether they're going to take you or not. So you get an earlier answer. Be happy, be depressed. If they take you, you have to attend the school and you have to withdraw all your other applications. Because that is a contractual requirement, the odds of getting into that school are much, much higher when you apply early decision. That's the quid pro quo. If you're willing to go ED, you're saying, I'm going to commit to you, I am all in, the odds of getting in are much, much higher. Much higher. There's a second program called Early Action. The rules are the same, except if they admit you, you don't have to attend. If they take you, you can still choose to say no and apply to other places. But you go early decision, that choice is removed from you. Follow up, go.
So early action, that's still what we suggest?
Yes. Remember, anyone who applies early has their act together more, is showing demonstrated interest, is usually a stronger student. And this is one of our points of pain in counseling. Is it so powerful that everything has left shifted, and we're dealing with the intensity of high energy college admissions in October, in September, in August, when we used to deal with it in November, December, and January. Early is beginning to dominate. But you don't apply early unless you really know you want to go. Go. Fun? Is early action the same deadline? Generally speaking, yes. It'll usually be between October 15th and November 15th, usually. But schools have multiple early programs. I mean, they're doing all kinds of crazy marketing stuff with that, because it's very school advantageous. Early programs are not to your advantage as the consumer. They are not to your advantage as the student. They are to the school's advantage, because they can lock you down earlier, you are more likely to attend, and they generally don't have to give you as much money, because you're all in. You've told them you're all in. Next question, go.
School, say, doesn't require any essays. The optional essay, or another optional essay, should you do them, or is it just wasting your time?
Ladies' question. Look, my school I'm applying to doesn't have a mandatory essay. It has an optional essay. Should I do it? I have an answer. Your mom looks at you and says, I'd like you home by midnight. Is that a mandate? Well, you kind of read the room, right? You're like, it was a polite mandate. You thought you had to be home at midnight, but in general, you sort of got the message. So for me, when someone says something is optional in admissions, I generally hear, I'd like you home by midnight. The exception, you know you're going to get into this place. You've looked at Naviance, every single kid in history who has your grades and test scores was accepted. You don't have to. But in general, to me, there's no such thing as optional. I just check that box. Okay? Go. Gentleman's question, if I want to get my doctorate, now I'm going to stop here. This is why I love high school students. Because this is the guy who rolled in his skateboard, sat down in the front and was like, come on, impress me. And he's asking me about the doctorate. You can never make assumptions about high school students. Thank you for reminding me of that. Now the actual question, if I want to get a doctorate, do I have to get a master's first? No, it's actually the other way around. If you're in a doctoral program and they decide you're not good enough, they kick you out and they give you a master's degree as a thank you. So for a doctor, you chase a doctorate, there's no master's along the way. You go from bachelor to doctorate. Go.
Now, is it true if you're looking at med school, does your what you go for your fourth year really matter?
The lady's question. You want to go to med school. Does your major matter? What do you think the answer would be? The answer is no. Not at all. The highest rate of acceptance into medical school is currently for music majors. The lowest rate of acceptance into medical school right now is bio majors. Why? Music majors have strong empath skills. Really, medicine is exactly the same as veterinary science, except your patients can talk to you. So empathy is powerful. Bio majors, in general, tend to be boring science people who communicate through grunts and clicks. So no, you don't have to think. In fact, the way they set the thing up with the new MCAT, it's overwhelmingly rewarding humanities majors because they're trying to drive empathy. So it doesn't matter. Major in what you're good at. Go.
Going back to the UC prompts that are out there right
Yeah.
now, where you have to pick now, you have to do 4A or something like that. And you had mentioned trying to keep a theme.
Yeah.
Can you just elaborate a little bit because they seem so different, these prompts that are out there?
So the lady's point is like there's 4 prompts that you have to pick out of 8, and the topics are really different. I think what I'm sort of saying theme, if you are a serious student, and that accurately defines you, you would answer these 4 questions with the voice of a serious student. This is who I am. This is my holistic approach. If you are sort of joyful and a bit silly, then I would answer in that voice consistently every question using that voice so they consistently say, this kid smiles at life. This is who she is. This young lady is exceptionally serious and academic. This is who I am. I'm not here to mess around. I'm here to answer these questions in sort of a dignified, intellectual way. So when I'm saying unity of voice, that's really what I'm driving at. Does that help? What do we got over here? Go.
When you start applying the application online, can you save it and come back and finish it? Are you complete everything in one day?
Can you save the application stuff as you go? Absolutely, yes.
So it's not.
No, it's not sort of begin and end in one fell swoop. No, you can save as you go. And just so you know, guys, as your questions get answered and you decide it's time to leave, I am not going to be remotely offended if you do that. Go, sir.
Just a question about the merits. Harry spoke earlier. The first question is, do the UC schools do merit aid?
The gentleman's first question, do UC schools do merit aid? Kind of. They have scholarship programs called Regents Scholars Programs that you apply for that are clearly linked to your academic performance. And they have a lot of money for athletes. So those are 2 meritorious kinds of awards. What's your second question?
So then you gave the example of diversity that the school of Louisiana wants for the kids from California. So if we've got like, the school from Louisiana, sort of 60% acceptance rate, and you've got a kid with a very high score, he's getting money.
Yes.
What about the top 20 school in Georgia?
So the gentleman's question here, this is a top 20 school in the, I was going to say, this is a top 20 school in the country. Do they give merit money? No, they don't have to. They're highly ranked. They don't need to recruit kids. Their ranking does it for them. This is the 10th best school in Georgia. Totally different animal. And they want California kids, they will pay to get the kid if the test scores are high enough. Does that answer your question? In the back, go.
Way back at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that oftentimes some of the big name schools are not the best teaching schools.
Correct.
How then do they get the respect and why are they so expensive?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for not leaving even though you had the perfect seat to do so, right? The gentleman's question. Earlier on I said sort of these big named schools are not the best teaching schools. So where does the respect come from? I need to be a little bit more specific here, okay? Big name public schools that are research oriented are not teaching schools. But they have big brands and they aren't that expensive. So UCLA all in is $30,000 a year. Stanford all in is $70,000 a year. So they're very different animals. The teaching you will get at Stanford will be consistently really, really strong because Stanford makes sure they put appropriate investment into their faculty. They'll have their research group, they'll have their teaching fellows, they'll sort of have the whole thing put together because they can afford to do so. So schools of that ilk, the Harvards and the Dartmouths and the Yales and the Chicagos, not only put extra money into teaching, but also have students who have shown a proclivity to be self-starters. It's one of the reasons they got into the school to begin with. So they have a stronger self-starting extroverted population that naturally seeks the answers and a ton of money to throw at ultimately the teaching problem. Now, having said all of that, I don't happen to believe that because a college is highly ranked, it is better for your child. I happen to believe that because a college is highly ranked, it is simply more popular and has a very, very high yield rate. That's the number one thing in rankings. A yield rate, gang, is if they take you, what are the odds you're going to show up? Would you say UCLA is a well-known school? UCLA's yield rate never goes above 40%. Ever. In fact, do you remember how I told you they take 16,500 kids? Every year. Do you know how many show up? About 4,000. That means UCLA, one of the top countries in the world, one of the top countries, one of the top colleges in the world, about 25% of the kids they accept show up. Harvard has a yield rate of 70%. That's why it's consistently number one or number two. Everyone they take shows up. So they keep sort of rolling this institutional dice around yield. They're popular, so more people apply. If you get in, people are fired up, they go, they stay highly ranked. That's how the game works. Did I answer your question? If not, what did I miss?
I also wondered if it had something to do with the fact that the group of people they select are already at the top of their game.
Well, that actually makes sense. It sort of speaks to their self-starters. So the group of people they select are always going to go ahead and seek more from a school. Here's what's interesting. There's no link between your undergraduate school and how much money you make. That link does not exist. Kids who go to Yale do not necessarily make more money than kids who go to Cal Poly Pomona. In fact, the kid who's an engineer from Cal Poly Pomona will make more money coming out of school than the classics major from Yale. Major dominates income. School does not. Yeah.
What about your kid wants to go to University of Paris?
I want to be related to you. The lady's question, my child wants to go to the university in Paris, like the Sorbonne. What do I think about that? This is a difficult question to answer. Obviously, she needs to be fluent in the language. Obviously, she would need to take the French back, because that is something that they would look to if it's a well-known school. And in general, the best path is to do the first year in America and then transfer the second year through the study abroad program. And if the kid is very successful, just stay there. But sort of like, there's a lot of schools, for example, in England and Germany that are now actively recruiting American students to go there. The system is so extraordinarily different, it's very hard for me to sort of dig in. But I'll give you an example. The English system, it generally never takes more than 3 years. It's not 4 years. You only study one thing. And so you could be a 17-year-old who goes to university in England, and at 22, you can have a medical degree. Because you're only just doing one thing for 5 years. The system's so different from what we are used to, right? So you have to be ready for what is a very violent shift in learning style once you go there. Almost all universities in England and in France and in Germany, they're autodidactic. You do so much of the learning by yourself. You're not in school with professors. You get like 30 minutes 3 times a week with a tutor on your subject. That's kind of how it works. So there's nothing wrong with sort of being in Paris. It's fantastic if you can pull it off, but I know the system really, really well. And I would find out, do they want her to take French back? What do they require from American students? What's sort of the retention rate from kids from America? Do they graduate or do they tend to run away? Those are all things you want to know. Couple more, go.
When you apply for like academic scholarships, do you apply depending on like the individual school you want to go to, or like
Ladies' question, when you apply for academic scholarships, do you apply to an individual school or do you apply overall? And this is one of those places where the answer is yes, because they're both right. So let's say you're applying to UCLA. You would apply at UCLA for the Regents Scholarship. And in fact, you might apply for the scholarship that is academic at any school that you apply to, right? But also a school might go and go, we really like you, so we're going to give you the Fred Smith Memorial Scholarship for $5,000 as a recruiting tool. So sometimes they'll use the academic money to chase you, and sometimes you'll chase the academic money. And you know what the difference is? The ranking of the school. The more highly ranked the school, the more you chase them. The more middle ranked the school, the more they chase you. I got you and I got you. You haven't done yet.
For the essay portion of the application, for UCs, are the concept to student
So I think this is what you're asking. For every UC school that I apply to, the prompts are the same, or are you asking me a different question? Yes, so the UC system shares an application. That means the 8 prompts are the same, but the schools might choose to use them differently. So the way UCLA uses your answers might be different from the way Santa Barbara uses your answers, and it will certainly be different from the way Berkeley uses your answers. But you just want to give your honest and open answers in your voice. Okay? I want you to tell your story your way with no outside interference in as raw a form as you can. I want to get to know you. And that doesn't mean you have to be perfect. I want to know what drives you. I want to know what sort of you're passionate about. I want to know what irritates you. I want to come away from those 1,000 words knowing the kind of human who you are. So the things that are important, the things that matter, ranging from sports to cooking to academics to politics, whatever it is, I want to know what it is. Because I want to admit a human into my place, and I want to know more about that human. Like, the best analogy, it's kind of like dating. It's good to be attractive, but you're not going to date someone who's dull. You want someone who's kind and interesting and funny and worthy of being on your arm, and hopefully taller. Right? So, like, that's it. It's a whole thing. So I want to know it all. I'm dying. Go away. If you have final questions, come on up. Thanks, Dan.